Evacuating a ship under these conditions, where you have a severe heel, is probably one of the most difficult things that you can do on board the ship. So, you know, the crew did a great job. Now, what should have happened was that the evacuation process is essentially in two parts. There's the assembly part, and then there's the abandonment. And what I think one of the things that was doesn't appear to have gone very well was the assembly process. And I would have thought that that should have started almost immediately that the ship had hit the rocks. It's down to the captain to start the assembly process, and he needs to assess the situation and rapidly call the assembly process to start.
Okay, so, I mean, you think the crew did well. I mean, training is, of course, essential in these situations, isn't it? You need leadership, you need clarity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, all the crew on board the ships, large passenger ships, are trained in how to handle an abandonment process. They're trained in handling the passengers, they're trained in getting the passengers on board the lifeboats and launching the lifeboats. But, again, it needs to be remembered that you can't launch lifeboats once the ship has got a heel of more than 20 degrees. It's virtually impossible to launch lifeboats, and that's why it's so important to get the assembly process, get the passengers assembled as quickly as possible and into the lifeboats as quickly as possible. This seems to have taken far too long.
Well, exactly. I mean, and this, we've heard about the difficulties because of the angle of the ship of launching those lifeboats. I mean, if the ship were in deeper waters, heaven knows what might have occurred there. Do you think the issue of lifeboats needs to be looked at in terms of safety?
Well, look, I think the whole concept of lifeboats needs to be reviewed. It has been on the review for some time. The whole concept of using these davit-launched lifeboats is, you know, the concept is 100 years old. And so we probably do need to look at this again. But again, I want to emphasize that had the evacuation process started when the ship was holed, we possibly would have seen a very different picture. The passengers would have been assembled in about 40 minutes, maybe up to 60 minutes, and then they would have been able to board the lifeboats while the ship was still upright or very shallow angle of heel. And that would have been a completely different process.
How important is it, we mentioned the crew and the leadership and clarity, of course the behaviour of the passengers is important as well, isn't it, in terms of doing this in an orderly and safe way. And I guess drills are important, but we understand that they hadn't had their drills yet because they were only a few hours into the voyage.
Well, yes, it's down to the passengers as much as to the crew. Passengers need to know where they're going for a start, and unfortunately, in this case, the passengers hadn't undertaken the mustering drill, and so a lot of the passengers probably didn't even know where their assembly stations were. Also, you know, large passenger ships are very disorientating environments, and it's very difficult to get your bearings on board a ship. And the fact that this incident happened only a couple of hours after the ship left port would have made that situation even worse, because the vast majority of those passengers would not have known the layout of the ship and would not have known where the assembly stations were. I would even guess that the majority of passengers would have had difficulty in even finding their cabins to go and retrieve their life jackets.